Are we ready today? Because it's been, gosh, several months since Karina LaMalfa has been on the show. You know, I love her to death. I love her to pieces. I love her to health. How about that? I love her to health. You know, we got to be careful what we say. So I love her to pieces. I love her to health. And we're going to talk about gluten-free and maybe dairy-free. Just trying that alone. If you're not willing to do a whole food, maybe you can just do some things, but put on your seatbelt because we are going to learn and grow together. And I think that the music should be starting soon and our dancing should start. Oh yeah, we couldn't hear it before, but now we can hear it. I'll be right here. Yay, there we go.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who have been tuning in since yesterday or 7 years, I am so grateful to you and welcome back. But if you are brand new and you just stumbled upon the show for the first time today, we've been waiting for you. It's no accident that you tune in because, you know, I've been waiting for you because it is a place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening as well as my viewing friends, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, it's been a while since we've had Karina on the show, but every time she comes on, sparks, so much information comes out of her. She is so ready. She's been working really hard for her last certification, and she is just an incredible wealth of information. You know, many of us want to try healthy. We hear about gluten-free, dairy-free. We hear about vegan, whole food, plant-based. But today we're going to talk about specifically gluten, and maybe we're going to add a little bit of dairy-free living. Okay, so if you've been trying, and you say, I've been trying, but it's so easy to go back to my old habits. My friends are sabotaging. There's so many different ways that we create sabotage. We create sabotage. How do we create sabotage? I want to do this and I want to do that. Well, the reality is we do. We set ourselves up for failure. So when Karina is on the air, our goal and our mission is to focus on the new year, which is almost over, a new truth that is always with us, and a new you that comes and becomes evolved. And so that was our series. That's been our series this whole year. And so I am so grateful that Karina she has finished up her studies and continues to grow, even though she's done with her studies. And she's going to help us create a plan so that we can recommit to our commitment to health. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Karina LaMalfa is back to do just that. Welcome, Karina, to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show.
Thank you, Lily. It's always a pleasure to see you.
It is always a pleasure to see you, and catching up with you is always so much fun. Okay, so catch us up with what's been happening with you, because you have been such a busy bee getting your latest certification.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, it was a big one, a big endeavor by the National Board of Medical Examiners and the International Consortium of Health and Wellness Coaching to create an international and national standard for health and wellness coaches. So I think 1,000 people have been tested and invited into the organization. So the training was just incredible and so helpful in so many ways. So that added for me, on top of my other nutrition certificates through the T. Colin Campbell organization. I've also been trained with Dr. Barnard, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, a few others, and I've been lucky enough to train with some really excellent physicians in New Jersey, and to be able to help people hour by hour, week by week,
Mhm.
make the changes that allow them to sustain good health. And that's really the beauty of my life.
I love it. I love it. And I love the fact that you don't hoard it, that you're giving it away. And today we're going to be talking about gluten-free. And as we were talking about it, I said, I was listening to your ideas of what you want to do. And so we've got a new acronym that will help everybody that's listening today use this acronym to set yourself up for success. And the acronym is simply RICE. Rice. Who doesn't love rice? Everybody loves rice, right, Karina?
Yes, absolutely.
So we're going to talk about how to replace, how to increase, how to create, and how to enjoy. So are you ready for this challenge? Are you ready, Karina, for this?
I'm always ready.
Now, as with your new certification, what can you do that's different than before?
The idea of this new certification would eventually allow people to be reimbursed with their healthcare dollars when they see a certified Board of Medical Examiners health and wellness coach. So it's a way to really understand the importance of health and wellness coaching and how people cannot do this alone by themselves, or even just by seeing a doctor once a month, once a quarter, once a year. So as humans, we learn from one another, and we actually need a mentor or a guide, as you are to so many people. So, so we need help, and it's a nod to that. And it's also a nod to the incredible benefits of working with someone, but also the effects. So yes. I see people every day who in short amounts of time and long amounts of time are moving away from a state of disease and a mindset of being trapped that way and moving into health. And that is incredible. So that is why I do what I do.
And we know that you are passionate about what you do. And we're going to continue our conversation with Karina LaMalfa when we return worldwide at whenyounneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. Okay, Karina, that's a mouthful. To be able to reimburse people for their health, and is this your insurance? So are you going to be able to take insurance, or this is going to be, how are you going to work with that?
So it hasn't happened yet, but the design of it was really that doctors, especially lifestyle physicians, wanted a certification level for health and wellness coaches so that they could refer and use these people. But the only way to make that sustainable is to allow people to use either their FSA, their personal spending accounts, or actually be able to swipe their insurance cards just the way they would with a dietitian, or just the way they would with a doctor or a nurse practitioner.
So does this give you an MPI number?
Eventually. So we're probably 3 years out. So you know how things start slowly, but they have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So first an organization had to be created, and then the testing standards had to be created, and then the test had to be created, and then they had to try testing people. So the next step will be to create that reimbursement level, which will help people. People will be able to get more of it. Maybe if they could only afford one coaching session, maybe they'll be able to afford 6 of them or 8 of them.
I love that you are a trailblazer in that. Okay, so with that in mind, so today we're going to talk about how to live a gluten-free life. I see somebody in the background. I don't think I've ever met your son. Oh, here we go. You can count on me. Let me see him.
Oh, he's coming over.
Are you guys on?
Yeah, we're on.
Sorry.
This is my son, some of my best work.
Reliever a voicemail.
Hey, what a handsome guy.
Thank you.
5959.
All right,
Once again, here's Lillian.
Oh, it's on the stairs.
Welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, where we always learn and grow together. Today's teacher is Karina LaMalfa. She has become a good friend and someone just that I love to health. And so here we go. We're going to talk about how do we live a gluten-free life? And by the way, gluten-free and dairy-free go hand in hand. Can you share with us, Karina, why does a dairy and gluten-free diet go hand in hand?
Well, I guess the easiest answer would be that both dairy and gluten in many people create an inflammation in the body.
Hmm.
And they also affect the gut microbiome in not a terribly good way, and that is probably the mechanism behind the inflammation. So, for a lot of people, we are just not meant to either drink the milk of another species, certainly past infancy. So it creates a lot of inflammation in the body and it wreaks a lot of havoc. In terms of gluten, we just have so much of it, so readily available. And it's such an inexpensive food. It's so easy to overconsume. And bodies can be very sensitive to that level of overconsumption.
Hmm.
So we're going to talk today about bringing in some variety in that, other grains, if you're looking for grains, but also vegetables and other things high in phytonutrients that will create a better balance.
Very good, very good. And so here's an analogy I want to give everybody because, I'm allergic to cats, and there are some dogs most dogs I'm allergic to.
Mhm.
And if I lived in a home with 10 cats and I was told I was allergic to cats, getting rid of 5 cats is still not going to solve my problem.
Yeah,
And
true.
so why I want to encourage people to consider, although we're going to be talking about gluten-free, I would like people to consider also embracing perhaps a dairy-free. And there's so many substitutions, Karina, out there. And so before we talk about all that, we're going to take the acronym I had shared because I am the acronym queen. We're going to take the acronym RICE. And so we're going to start with replace, which is, these are your replace, increase, and create. And so we've got the last one, enjoy. So let's start with replace. What are some of the things that, in order for us to be successful, that replacing falls into our success pattern?
So yeah, I'm talking about adding a gluten-free diet to a high-level vegan diet, high in phytonutrients. When we replace the gluten, we're going to substitute other foods that do not have gluten.
Mm-hmm.
Most of your listeners probably know, but we're talking about reducing and replacing wheat, and also bulgur wheat, spelt, but surprisingly also barley and rye.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then some people really need to go and replace oats as well. So oats by nature are gluten-free. However, the soil or the way that they are grown, that can affect it and sometimes have traces of gluten. But also, as with all grains, when they're processed and they're run down the grinding chutes or the rolling chutes, and then they're placed in bags, they can pick up traces of gluten. So I'm a big fan of Bob's Red Mill
Mm-hmm.
gluten-free oats in case,
Yes.
in case you're able to tolerate oats. But some people in the beginning, when their gut microbiome is resetting, oats are a little hard on their stomach. So you want to
Yes.
have a small amount. So you're replacing non-gluten grains for your gluten grains. And then you're also hopefully replacing processed foods with whole foods. So the gluten-free industry, bless their hearts, they went out there and they saved a lot of people from a lot of pain and a lot of illness, but the products tend to be highly processed, highly refined. You'll see arrowroot powder. You'll see potato starch. You'll see a lot of oil and a lot of sugar to try to make a good gluten-free, bendable, soft cookie.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to stay away from those processed foods wherever possible, and make sure you're snacking on things like carrots and apples and plums and berries and seeds and nuts if you can.
Yeah.
So you're changing your snacking for sure.
Okay, so so many things come to mind as far as when you talk about gluten-free. One of the things that I think of is the glyphosates, the GMOs
Yeah.
that are associated with gluten and wheat. And so with that in mind, what is your advice as far as when you replace these substitutes, to look at organic and look at, do we have to even look at organic or non-GMO when we're replacing a wheat that's probably GMO with something like maybe a chickpea flour or, something else? What's your
You bring up such a good point. There's been a lot of writing lately about oats and glycophosphates. So oats have to be organic, and I don't think we said that a year ago. I think a year ago we said oats, we're not really in the dirty dozen, the list of things that really should be organic in a diet. But the oats were okay, even if they were just conventional. But now we're really seeing that oats and rice and grains especially, wherever possible, buy them in bulk, get them organic. And the good news is when you go organic, you already get the GMO free. Mm-hmm. So because you can't be organic and have GMOs. So.
I always go back and forth with the non-GMO certification and organic. Yeah. And because I am not, trust but verify, basically. And I don't have the verification tools to see if something that is non-GMO is organic, or if something that is organic is non-GMO. How do we know for sure? Is it the brand or the reputation of the provider of this product?
So shop in really reputable places or something, online. I will always love Whole Foods because I worked there and worked with them for a long time, and I know that they keep everything to a very high standard, just as your local shops will, and they can guide you. But organic as a certification is pretty reliable. It's really hard to get that. Really?
Very good. Very good. Okay. So replacing is the first word that we're going to embrace. And there are so many substitutions. When I first was in 1996 to 98, that's when I started going gluten-free. And that was the time they started altering wheat and adding the Roundup. And for those of you who don't know what non-GMO means, it means non-altered. And they take this but this chemical that is found in Roundup, and they put it in our food source so that when they fumigate the crop, it won't kill the crop, only kills the weeds. So as a result, all these different diseases are coming up, and it could be as simple as that your body is responding through inflammation to glyphosates. Anything that you would like to add to that, Karina?
Yeah, you're right. My reading too was somewhere around 1990, 1991, and it affected all of our main crops: soy, corn, wheat, and and then all of those foods are fed to animals, and people eat the products that come from there as well. And Europe said no. So that's always the interesting thing. Europe said no, we're not going to do that, but the United States said yes. And I think that we have seen a decrease in health, an increase in autoimmune disease, and an increase in just general fatigue and types of chronic fatigue symptoms for sure. Who knows what else?
Yes, and absolutely. I heard Dr. Robert Roundtree, who's going to be on my show pretty soon, he said that autoimmune disease is not your body turning against you. It's your body turning against your modified self. So what happens is that as we're taking in these toxins, they're storing in our organs, and our body is trying to do what it's supposed to do, which is protect us against intruders. And as a result, it seems like it's attacking us, but it's actually trying to help us. And so with that in mind, replacing with something, it's like when you're an alcoholic, you don't want, or when you are, let me just put it this way, when you are a cigarette smoker, you don't want to replace that habit with eating candy or sugar or putting a lollipop in your mouth. Basically, you want to substitute that, if you're a smoker, with, like meditation, breathing in real air, or doing something like exercise, substituting with something better than something worse. And so you see a lot of people that quit smoking gain a lot of weight because now they're substituting their addiction with a food addiction. And so with that in mind, replacement, the way you're suggesting, are there any products that you feel, Karina, that are other than the gluten-free oats that you would recommend that we look at?
Sure. Besides a basic whole food plant-based diet with all of the, fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds, I've I've been working a lot with hemp seeds. I mean, they really are nice and very high protein. So if we're removing some of the protein that we would find in wheat and other grains like barley and rye, so we want to put some of that back in. So I love raw sunflower seeds. I've been working a lot with buckwheat flour. It's really a great high protein food. So especially as we get older, we process protein just a little differently. And I recently read that, in our 70s and 80s, we want to make sure we're really using very, very high level, good quality protein sources from plants.
Okay. Now we've talked about replacement. Is there anything else that we've been missing that we need to talk about when it comes to replacing gluten?
Yes, let's be careful. So there are meat replacements out there, right? So that are made with a vital wheat gluten.
Yes.
You can lean over and grab, an example of that. So while they're very tasty,
what do you have in your hand? For those of you got to check out this. She's just she just pulled a rabbit out of her hat. I don't know. Go ahead, Karina.
Oh, you crack me up. Okay, so vital wheat gluten is gluten. Obviously, it's the wheat flour the wheat is ground into a flour and then it's washed until it's just gluten that's left. And people have found that if you add that to some spices and some water, you can make it into a loaf. You can shape it into things. So, if you're not having gluten sensitivity, sure. If there are kids in your family and they're just dying for a vegan sausage, go for it. But they're usually high in oil, very, very, very processed, high in salt. So the body is going to fight it. As you said, the body is going to see it as a foreign agent. So it's a once in a while food for people who don't have a gluten sensitivity. With a gluten sensitivity, I would prefer you use something like a tempeh. So tempeh can also be cut into steaks. It can be cubed. It can be crumbled. Black beans as well. You can make yourself a nice meat substitute. Portobello mushrooms. I think you and I have talked about the importance of mushrooms, half a cup daily if you can. Less is good too. So all of these things can be crumbled and made into meat-like substitutes and grain-like substitutes that will help you move into the replace category.
Very good. Very good. So we're going to continue. Today we're talking with Karina LaMalfa, and we're talking about replacing, increasing, creating, and enjoying a new gluten-free, perhaps dairy-free lifestyle. And we're going to continue our conversation with Karina LaMalfa when we return worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. Should I say health coach, health and wellness coach, Karina LaMalfa will be right here waiting for you. I should say health and wellness coach, right, Karina?
Sure.
I have to tell you, Karina, I don't think I'll ever buy another veggie burger ever again.
Yeah.
Because we had Dr. Michael Clapper on the show, and he talked about, I love him. He's gonna come back, and we're gonna do a water fast. So I don't know if you want to do that with us, but we're gonna do a water fast. But he gave us a formula, and the formula is this: when it comes to sodium, because I believe that the vegan industry is doing the same thing for vegan food as the standard American diet has done for our processed foods. So these meats that we're getting are full of wheat. They're full of things that we don't need, and sodium. And so he said, and I'm sure you know this already, but if you take for every calorie, your sodium in milligrams should not exceed your calories. So if it's 10 calories, you should have less than 10 milligrams of sodium in the food. Well, I went back and I looked at all my veggie burgers, which I love to enjoy. I love to enjoy it once in a while, and or at least once a week. I'll be honest. I like my veggie burgers once a week, like 3 or 4 times the sodium that it requires. So I decided that I was going to stop, and I went to the store and I got these big portobello mushrooms. And we grill them on the George Foreman, because we live in a condo, and so you can't grill in our backyard, So we put it in the George Foreman grill. I put a little bit of Bragg's I dilute it with water, so there's not that much sodium in it. And I put seasonings like garlic and oregano and a little bit of Bragg's diluted with water. It is to live for. It is so delicious that I'm like, why would I spend that kind of money with all that sodium, with all those additives, when I can just have a whole food, plant-based portobello mushroom burger? It's so good.
That's such a good idea to do it on that George Foreman grill, really,
Yeah.
because it presses it.
Yeah,
Even easier. So yeah, I marinate mine in balsamic vinegar. It gives it a little bit of a sweeter flavor.
Ooh, I'll
And
try that.
I add the spices that you add, and then I bake it on parchment paper. But I love your grilling idea. I love
Yeah,
it.
because it compresses it
Yes.
so that it has more of a chewy, meaty, and it's whole food,
Mhm.
plant-based. And I'm still trying to figure out the bun thing, but I do the gluten-free bun. And I really do love it with uh, is it Bubby's pickles?
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. At first when I tried it, it wasn't that good because you're so used to all the sodium and all the stuff that they put in it. This is all natural and it's so good. So what would be some recipes that you would do with some of the substitutions, the replacements? What would be some of the things that we can do to replace some of the foods like what I just talked about, the veggie burger?
Well, it seems like I'm always cooking for a crowd. So one of my favorite things to do is a lentil loaf.
Ooh.
And it's actually, I mean, it can be shaped into small loaves or burgers or meatballs.
What's in it?
And
What's in it? What's in it?
so, well, because you're essentially building up a loaf, there are some steps. So it's onions, carrots, garlic in a water saute or with veggie broth first. And then I pulse mushrooms. So portobello or baby bella mushrooms, and I pulse those for a while, saute those, and then you put that off to the side, and then now you have to steam your lentils, and then it has a lot of fresh herbs.
Steam them, not boil them?
Well, I do. I guess I do kind of boil them. Yeah, I guess I do boil them,
Okay,
and then
okay,
drain off what. But when I'm done, there seems to be no water left, so
okay.
it's kind of like a steam boil. And you can throw some onion in with the lentils and garlic to give that a flavor too.
That
So
sounds delicious. I think we're about to get started. Are we about to get started, Brian? Oh yeah, you hear it? He's so good at keeping us in track. Thanks,
thank
Brian.
goodness for Brian.
Oh, this is where I talk about my website, so I'll reintroduce you.
You can text Lillian McDermott or leave her a voicemail at
I
407
love that recipe. I'm going to do that.
5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
Welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, where you can hear us worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. I'm your host, Lillian McDermott, and it is my goal that we go through life, that we learn as much as we can. We don't know what we don't know, and that's what we talk about here. We talk about ownership in our life, no longer blaming and shaming and faulting and this duty of I've got to. On the show. I know that's really easy to fall back on that because it's what we've been trained to do. But this is what we're talking with Karina LaMalfa. We're talking about how to make gluten-free work for you, and perhaps maybe even dairy-free. We talked a little bit about that at the beginning, and during the break, she gave us a lentil loaf recipe that is to live for. So I want to encourage you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com. While you're there, please become a subscriber. And if you haven't become a subscriber, I have to ask why, because we say we're going to do it later and then we forget. So if you want to become a subscriber and you're driving now, just text me at 407-373-5959. That's 407-373-5959. Just text me your email address and I'll subscribe you. And so what we are doing here is we're creating a movement of taking your life back. Mind, body, spirit. Food is a lot, but not everything. So there's a lot more to health than just food. So we talk about all of those things in the show. Now, during the break, we usually are talking about things that we cannot talk about on the air. So I want to encourage you to not only subscribe to whenyouneedafriend.com, but also subscribe at my YouTube channel. When you do that, both audio and the visual goes straight to your email, and wherever you open your emails, tablets, your phones, or whatever it is, you'll have this conversation ready for you whenever you are open to have that time and that space. You'll get lots of free gifts when you sign up as well. While you're there, I want to ask you to follow me on my social media. If you're a podcast kind of person, you can follow me on all the podcasts that I'm in. And while you're there, please check out my sponsors. Without my sponsors, this show would not happen. So I want to encourage you to check them out and figure out ways that you can support them the way they have supported us. And I also want to encourage you to look at the McDermott Holistic Healing Foundation as a place where we are going to we're going to pay for people to get these kinds of holistic treatments that will help heal the body, mind, and spirit. So today we're talking with Karina LaMalfa, and Karina just became a health and wellness coach. And this was a long process and was it a 4-hour test, Karina, that you told me about? And you passed the first time with flying colors, but this is not your first degree. You also have a master's degree in psychology. And so you have spent your life really learning and growing. That's why when we met each other, we knew that we were kindred spirits. So the first acronym we talked about today, which is, replacing. Replacing is so important. But the next thing I heard you say was you wanted for people to increase. So let's talk about the increasing in our life. What are the things we need to increase?
Well, our bodies are amazing healing factories as long as we can get out of the way. Yes. And that's what we did with the replacing, right? We're taking out some things that could be aggravating to the body. So with increasing, we're going to add in the food that our body really needs, like what we're actually designed to eat, which is greens and leaves, lots of those. Berries, mushrooms if you can, onions, spices, lots of spices, dried spices, fresh spices, incredible healing properties, seeds, nuts if you can, seeds if you can't. And did I say beans? So maybe not.
Well, you did now. So we talk about with Dr. Furman, we talk about G-bombs, greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. Yeah. And that's what many people have embraced. He's been talking about this for a long time. And you're also saying that this is something that we need to increase.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen people reduce levels of illness and discomfort in weeks. Time on by making this kind of food forefront on their plate.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. And and the side effect of G-bombs, or as Dr. Joel Furman talks about them, is weight loss, or releasing weight, reducing inflammation in the body, and you start feeling better, and you get off a lot of your medications. Isn't that amazing that we're told, Karina, that when we go on medication, we'll always be on that medication?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and everything that we put in, takes a little something from us if it's not natural. So to be able to reduce medication, that is just huge. And I see that every day. I see people just dropping off, just no longer needing it. And the joy, as you said, that comes from that kind of a freedom and being able to see it completely differently is really, really huge.
Yeah. And I want to add about the mushrooms because, and I don't know if you have a different take on this, Karina, but Dr. Joel Furman always talks about how we need to cook the mushroom. To not eat the mushroom raw because there's a carcinogen in the mushroom when it's raw. But when you cook it, that carcinogen becomes a cancer-fighting agent. Would you like to add a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it can be. So it's in some mushrooms, definitely. Yeah. So I didn't know this. I used to eat raw mushrooms like everyone else. Remember the salad bars of 90?
Yeah. He says limit it to cooking it. And they taste so much better when they're cooked.
They do. Oh, they do. They really can become a flavor powerhouse. I like to cook up a big batch of them in the beginning of the week and then just put them on, on salads and bowls and grain bowls or quinoa bowls or Buddha bowl all throughout the week. You put them in wrap sandwiches. And I do my wraps with collards a lot, collard greens, like a blanched collard green, but also romaine lettuce. Perfect.
Very good. So we increase all the whole food plant-based.
Yes.
And is there anything that we need to be aware of, or anything that that we have not talked about that you would like for us to increase that's not maybe part of the norm?
Let's see. Well, I would like people, if they're doing this whole hog and they're stepping away from all of the animal products, to make sure they talk with a practitioner about adding in a couple of key supplements, like vitamin D, vitamin B12, and maybe a DHA supplement.
Yeah.
So, but definitely that's something to speak with your health practitioner about.
Yeah. And people who choose to reduce their meat intake, they don't have to maybe give it all the way up. They can keep it to a small level. So increasing the veggies will help you decrease the need for the meat, right?
Yes. So think about adding every day, add 2 big salads with fresh onion and peppers and carrots. And some people put berries on top of their salad. Also add in raw vegetables as snacks with a hummus, a nice homemade hummus, or a store-bought one that you're a fan of that has no oil and low salt. And then also add in steamed vegetables, especially, as you increase your physical activity, you want a lot of steamed vegetables in broccoli, cauliflower, asparagus, artichokes. So just cram in all those things, at least 3 to 5, servings of fruit, depending on your personal needs, many of them being berries, and then your hemp or your flaxseed for your omega-3s. So you're crowding out some of the other foods and you're leaving a smaller place for them. And that, as you said, is a great way for people to lean in.
Wonderful, wonderful. So now we get to move out of the increase, because we talk a lot about it. You and I have talked, and for those of you who want to go to whenyouneedafriend.com, check out Karina LaMalfa. We've done a lot of shows with her. And so with lots of great tips about creating some incredible meals. So what is the CREATE when it comes to the RICE acronym for success in eliminating gluten?
Well, I guess to me, the CREATE means that you're going to get your hands dirty. So I know it's very common to eat out and to eat in restaurants, and maybe that's where we keep that veggie burger that might have a little more salt. When we're out and we really don't have the choices that we have at home. But make your kitchen as clean as possible. Make your kitchen just a creative energy space where you're trying and testing, and don't worry if you make some things and they're just a dud. That you will learn. So we want you to cook the things that you like and you love, and think of some family favorites that make you feel loved and warm, and see if you can recreate those as well.
Yeah, and again, do we really need gluten in our diet?
Yeah, we really don't. We really don't. It's kind of a low energy food. It has protein, and other than that, it doesn't really have a whole lot else for us, especially if it's been stripped and processed.
And I really love the flow that when you were talking to me, you didn't realize you were giving me these. I keep hearing things that you say, and so first I heard the replace, then I heard the increase, and the creating. So while we're on the break, we're talking about different recipes, and we talked about a mushroom burger, portobello mushroom, and how wonderful it is, and also the lentil loaf that you had suggested that we can create as well. And so we're about to go on to another break, and we're going to talk a little bit more about all the different ways that we can create. And when we return, we're going to talk about the enjoyment of life gluten-free. For those of us that think that going gluten-free is very stressful, lots of things that we can do to de-stress. And we're going to continue our conversation with Karina LaMalfa when we return worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. So with the CREATE, that's where you are so good, Karina. So let's talk about other things that we can create that are gluten-free. A lot of us think that we have to put certain foods that are gluten, but substituting with the gluten-free, how does that look in the kitchen for you? Are you gluten-free, Karina?
I am mostly gluten-free. So I do have a really great local health food store that uses organic grains, and they make a 3-grain bread. And it seems to be fine in small amounts for me. So, but I can even see how easy it is to just keep having a little more of that, especially if you're running. So I'm just going to reach over here.
Yes. What else do you have in your?
I have my favorite brand of so lasagna, right? So some of my heritage is Italian. So I'm always trying to, bring in all those foods that mean love, because why not? They bring back such great memories. So this is an organic, actually, is it organic? It's GMO free, but it's a brown rice lasagna pasta. And I also have one this is by Tinka Yada. They have a great line of pastas. You just have to hang over them in the pot. They definitely cook up it differently than a wheat pasta. You really want to time it well and then rinse it, and then you're good to go. And here's another organic green lentil lasagna noodle. So I can do a veggie lasagna with that. I do an oil-free marinade.
What's the taste?
For the brown rice noodle, I think it actually tastes better than a lasagna noodle. I think it tastes a little nuttier. And the green lentil one tastes a little more like vegetables. So you're just going to want to really soak both of them in a really good marinara sauce. So.
Yes. And in going back to the increased version, I've been taking eggplant and slicing it really thin on the mandolin, dipping it in like a coconut milk, unsweetened, and then I dip it in a chickpea. Right, I season the chickpea like I would do for a breading, and then I bake it in the oven.
Oh, I bet that's fantastic.
And I use that as my base for my lasagnas that I make.
Amazing. I have also, taken zucchini on a mandolin or with a knife and cutting that very fine and using that. That, unlike yours, I think yours is a perfect way to do it. But the zucchini...
No, there's different ways to do it.
Yeah, there are different ways. But just know the zucchini will get, zucchini lets off a lot of liquid. So that's not necessarily bad. You just have to let the lasagna sit for a while after you cook it.
Yeah.
So, and then I've been spiralizing a lot of different vegetables. So I have my Italian spiralizer. So I've been doing a lot of yellow squash, green squash. I'm moving now into, butternut and even chunks of acorn, and those are lovely too.
You're spiralizing your squash, your butternut?
Yeah, you take the big thick part. Yeah, and stick that on the spiralizer. It's lovely.
Guys without a warning.
Yeah, yeah. You'll need a different spice blend. I would do something more Moroccan with that.
Lillian McDermott or leave her a voicemail at 406.
Tell us about the Moroccan spices. Okay.
5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
Welcome back to the Lillian McDermott radio show, where we are always learning and growing. Welcome to my classroom, because I am the student just as much as you. And our teacher today is Karina LaMalfa. I love building with her, creating with her. And it's always so nice because, she comes from a place of love and wanting to help. There's a lot of people that are all in it for, what's in it for me. And Karina is all, what can I give? What can I give? And so, Karina, I just want to acknowledge you, the hard work that you have forged to become a health and wellness coach. And with the certifications that you have, you are a powerhouse. And I know that the next time you're on the show, we're going to have lots of surprises, lots of new things to reveal so that our listeners and followers can reach out to you. And for those of you who would like to learn more about Karina, you can reach out to Facebook. On Facebook, you can go to Karina PL. That's in P as in Pierce, L is LaMalfa. So that's Karina LaMalfa, PL. And so, and also another way is in Instagram account is A Mighty Kitchen, A Mighty Kitchen. So if you want to connect with Karina, because of like-mindedness, that is a way to do it. And so, Karina, we're working together, and you're doing some great things on your own to get to that next level of helping as a coach to people. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing.
Thank you, Lillian, and you as well.
Thank you. Okay, so we talked about replacing, we talked about increasing, we talked about creating. So let's talk about creating a little bit more and how we can keep ourselves from reaching out for that thing like that bread that is so easy to capture. Or how do we replace, how do we create breads if that's something that we want? How do we create things that remind us of the foods that we love that may have gluten, but we can substitute things out?
Yeah. So sometimes I think, what is as satisfying as bread? A quinoa bowl or a rice bowl with lots of different things layered on. And maybe you have a tahini drizzle, or maybe you have, as you mentioned, some Bragg's liquid aminos or some balsamic vinegar to pour over the top.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we were also going to talk a little bit about rice, right? So just to,
yes, the real rice, and arsenic. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, a little bit. There's been a lot in the news about arsenic in rice. There are three ways that I do love rice. I have reduced the amount that I eat, so I don't eat as much as I used to. Mm-hmm. But there are three ways I think to bring down that arsenic level. First, if you rinse your rice, you'll bring the arsenic down about 10 or 15%.
Okay.
So a really thorough rinse makes it a little harder to measure your water when your rice is wet, but you can do it. Drain it in a fine mesh sieve, and then you should be, back to the 2-to-1 water to rice that you'll be steaming it with. So that's one way to reduce it a little bit. Mm-hmm. Another way is to use a different cooking method, which is called the pasta method with rice. You get a little bit of a different consistency, but you're basically filling your pot with water and you're putting the rice in when the water boils, just like with pasta. Mm-hmm. And then when it's done and when you test it and it's the way you want it, still a little bit al dente, then you're going to drain it just like you would pasta. So that's the pasta method of pasta boiling.
How long do you boil it for?
You're still, I've been using a volcanic rice, and that will cook in 30 minutes if you can find that. But all your whole grain rices are really, unless you're soaking them a whole lot or overnight, they're taking 35 to 40 minutes. So you'll keep tasting that.
So I'm interested. I want to go back to the pasta method because I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, and that will take the arsenic down more like 40%, 50%. Because it's boiling out in the water and you're draining the water, and you can even rinse the rice.
So when you say when it's al dente, that means it's got still a little crunchiness to it, right?
A little bit of a chewiness. Yeah, I don't know if I would call it a crunchiness, but I would definitely call it a chewiness.
So when you drain the rice after that, do you replace water, or do you just continue to cook it until the moisture is out?
Yeah, so cook it. Boil it, taste it with a spoon like you would with the rice, like you would with pasta, and then drain it once when you feel it's done, and then just pour it into a bowl. Fluff it with a fork.
Okay, so you put it back. Okay, I guess I just.
So it's one process. Boil the water. In goes the rice. Boil for 35 minutes or so. Test it because all rice is different. When it's ready, drain it in a colander or a fine mesh sieve, excuse me, and then you're done.
Oh, you don't put it back so that you get the moisture out of it?
You should have drained all the moisture out of it in the colander or the sieve.
Oh, okay. I'm curious. I'm going to do that. And what's the third? You said there were three.
So the third is my new favorite rice company. It's in Pennington, New Jersey. It's called Blue Moon Acres, www.bluemoonacres.com. And they have found a way to grow 10 different kinds of rice in land that doesn't have the arsenic, because that's where the rice is getting the arsenic. It's just beautiful at cleansing the soil. So it's pulling the arsenic up out of the soil. But unfortunately it's in the rice. So they're using land that creates rice that is at a water quality safety level of arsenic.
Wow, that's great.
It's a little more expensive, but we're eating less of it anyway. And I always say, for your health, it's just a few extra pennies and they're worth it.
Very good. So we talked about replacing, increasing, creating.
Yes.
And so the last one is the E. And so I added that one is enjoy. You know,
Yeah.
we could be very fearful of our food, and that fear for me creates more problems than the actual tarnish, you know, the toxins in the food. And so enjoying our food, enjoying what we're doing, and developing that close relationship with our food is crucial. You as a chef and you as a coach, what are some of the things you do to kind of like embrace and set yourself up for that success so that you can remain committed to the commitment to health?
Yeah. Well, I feel like I have to bring up meditation,
Okay.
because meditation, and I don't think I had understood my whole life what meditation could do. But when I discovered a few years ago insight meditation, with the gratitude and the loving kindness for all things and all beings, and certainly for ourselves and our bodies, and the process of growing and our gratitude for it, and any time that you can begin a meal or begin cooking from that kind of a mindset, you'll have a better outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And then, just infusing your life with gratitude for what we have, and gratitude for finding you and finding a path to better health. Because whatever age we're at, it's the right time. So, and then sharing it with others, the Blue Zones, what a great website, if anyone has a minute to see what people living over 100 are doing. But they're eating together. They're living a life with purpose and intent. They're helping others, and they're combating some of the loneliness that we see here in America by creating a community. And that's what you do every time you bring us together, Lily.
Yeah.
You create that community, because it can be very lonely making a dietary change. Very,
Well,
very lonely.
it is. It really is lonely. And then,
So build your tribe.
one of the things that we talked about, and I think we've talked about it in the past, that loneliness is like a huge, will increase your mortality rate by 45%. More than addiction, more than any other thing. So, enjoying your food and in sharing it and creating this, like we're talking about the Heal Tribe. The Heal Tribe in the Space Coast is going to get together on the 30th. Actually, I don't want to date this, but the Heal Tribe is going to be in Jacksonville so we are in Jacksonville in the First Coast, and we're also in the Space Coast. I need for you guys to go to Healthy Eating and Living Heal Tribe, join that group so that you know what's going on in the Space Coast and in the First Coast. So thank you for that, reminding us about the Heal Tribe, which I want you to come and join us and give some talks and help us out, Karina, because you are perfect for us. We really, truly are so grateful every time that you are on the show, Karina, and I am looking forward to the next time because of all the new additions in your life. So thank you so much, Karina, for everything you're doing.
My pleasure, Lillian. Always great to see you.
Always great to see you. Healthy mind, healthy body will give you a wonderful journey. This is Lillian McDermott wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job. Good job. There's so much that we cannot talk about on the air because so much stuff is going on. Is there anything that you would like to add before we go, Karina?
I would. Yeah, thank you. So I was watching the time as you were, and under enjoy, we have to be prepared to enjoy. And that's where, the rubber hits the road a little bit. So you and I always talk about batch cooking. Cooking for me is meditative, so I can put on some music and just sit in the kitchen and chop and dice and not have to rush. So Sundays and Wednesdays are usually my big cook days, and I'll make a lot of something. And that way people can take it with them, and then they're prepared. And the people around you will say, wow, what's that? Look at what's in, wow, we were talking about like a Moroccan spiced butternut squash with chickpea dish, so
what's in your Moroccan spice? What's in your Moroccan spice?
So what's wonderful about Moroccan spice is that you've got the cumin and the white pepper and the garlic and the onion and things like that, but you've added cinnamon and sometimes a little bit of coriander, and that sweetens it. Oh my goodness. So, and these are all these aromatics. We're supposed to like the way they smell, but we also are supposed to be attracted to them because of their phytonutrients and their extra properties for healing. So you bring that to work and everyone is going to want to try some. And before you know it, you're planting the seed. So enjoy has to do with the tribe, but also being prepared, sharing your food, and planting the seed for others. That's what I would say.
You know, also with enjoy, I do want to add the sabotagers in our life.
Oh, yeah.
The people that don't want you to grow. They're like crabs in a bucket. You know, crabs are on top of each other and they pull each other down to climb on top of each other.
Yep.
And we have got to be, I remember my girlfriend, Judy Bressler, she called me her balcony friend. And instead of her orchestra pit friend. So the balcony picks you up and puts you in the balcony where the orchestra people, not against anybody who's in the orchestra pit, but it's that visual of picking somebody up. We need to get rid of the crabs in our bucket. We need to get rid of, or identify who they are and change the way we interact with them. Because we use them to give in. We know who these people are. We know who they are and what they do in our life. And we can still love them. And until we get stronger, love them from afar. You don't know how many times I've told certain people that I'm not vegan. I don't consider myself vegan. I consider myself whole food, plant-based, and I consider myself a nutritarian. And I eat mostly whole food, plant-based, but I don't consider myself vegan because I want for people to feel welcome in any, it's like denomination. Whether it's Baptist or Buddhist or Muslim or Catholic or, whatever, we all have the same goal, which is to love and be loved. Right. And so when we have these people in our lives that are just bringing us down, it is our awareness that we can create a plan and say, I know every time I go to that person, I'm going to drink like a fish. So I am going to limit my time because now I'm going to go alcohol free, or I'm going to stay away from this because they love their French fries and they want to meet at Burger King every time. We're going to meet at the park and we're going to bring our own food. I mean, there's so many different, would you like to add anything to that, Karina?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great idea. And I do want to also touch on exercise, cardio and strengthening our hearts. And so if you can switch some of those friends, maybe they can't be so negative if you're running with them.
Run faster! Oh my God, they're going to start talking really crap. Okay, so that E could be exercise. So we got replace, increase, create, exercise instead of enjoy.
Yeah, because we want to keep our bones strong with our healthy diet, but we want to keep them strong by pounding them a little bit with some of our high impact or low impact exercise. And then we want to keep our muscles really strong too. So that's important too.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Karina, it's always a pleasure. And it's always nice to reconnect with you. You are my soul sister from another mister. And I'm looking forward to doing and working with you more and more.
Thank you, Lillian. So good to see you. And thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you. And for those of you who have stayed on to the end of the show, make sure you like us and that you share it. So help me grow the show. And I'll be right here waiting for you tomorrow.